When a petrol head, or a gearhead, or a car guy, or a car person is looking to buy a car, what really matters to them? Is it Nürburgring lap times and out handling prowess? I'm going to say no, because if that were the case, everybody would have a Caterham and they'd be done with it. I think really it's about the experience, isn't it? It's about the emotions, it's about how you feel when you're driving a car. I think that's where today's car, the Nissan 370Z, comes in, because oh boy does it deliver an experience. So how did Nissan do it? Well, they built a front-engine, rear-wheel drive sports coupe with a 3.7 litre naturally aspirated V6 that'll do 7,000 RPM, 323 brake horsepower. They put it in a relatively small and compact body, which is actually shorter than the older 350Z, smaller wheelbase, slightly wider and lower, but it's a lot more rigid. They improved this car significantly over the 350Z. It is in fact an entirely different car, despite the fact that it kind of looks like an evolution or a really massive facelift of that car. It obviously continues on that heritage of the Z car, which goes all the way back to the late 1960s with the Datsun 240Z. And this is the last of the Z cars that may well ever be sold in the UK and Europe. The current Z car, which is just called the Nissan Z, or Z if you're American, is not available here, and what a shame. This car came out in 2009, this particular car's a 2010, and they sold it through until 2020. But despite the fact that it was designed and built in 2009, in many ways it feels like an old brute of a car. Now, it's got a lot of modern technology in it, modern dashboard and safety features, but it captures the essence of what an old school, almost like muscle car, well, sports car, muscle car. This is not a car for everyone. I will say that right from the off. It's heavy, it's hard to see out of. The inputs are heavy, the steering is heavy. It's got a firm ride. That's because it's a sports car, it needs a firm ride. That's just a feature, isn't it, of a proper sports car. You're enclosed, you're low down, you know, you've got to really fold yourself down into this car, and then you're looking out of quite a narrow windscreen. They've focused on those things that do bring the drama and the emotion and the experience to the forefront. The interior of this car is sporty AF. With these deeply cowled dials and this sporty steering wheel, the 3 gauges across the top with your oil temperature and your voltmeter, and then the clock. I think they ran out of ideas for the 3rd gauge. Yes, it's got a very sort of serious and sporty and cool feel to it. Quite a modern touchscreen system for 2009. I think this had the higher spec one in it, but it's also got all these buttons. It kind of looks like a command console for some sort of I don't know, computer in a sci-fi film. It also has Bluetooth connectivity for both phone and music. Again, for the age of car, is pretty advanced. This one is a special edition. It's the 370Z Black Edition, also known as the 40th anniversary. They only made 370 of them. This car's number 75. It's funny, it's called the Black Edition because the car's black, and I think you could get it in dark grey. But it kind of should have been called the Red Edition because all the extra features on it are red. You've got red leather seats, which are electronically adjustable and heated. You've got red Alcantara suede-like material. And then you've got red stitching on the steering wheel and red brake calipers. It has keyless entry and keyless go with a start-stop button. Now, interestingly, you have the key, which is like any other Nissan key actually, like a Nissan Juke key or whatever, but it has a Z on it. And that goes in, or can go, but doesn't have to go, in the little section here, which is nice that there is somewhere to put it, but you don't have to, you can just keep it in your pocket. It is actually pretty practical. The fat bottom bottle fits in all of the cup holders. There's one in the centre console here, and then they're in the door pockets as well on each side. There's a glove box, which apparently the 350Z didn't have, which is kind of crazy. And there is also storage behind the seats, which is a very good thing in a car like this, because, you know, it doesn't have the biggest boot. The boot is it's okay for a car like this. Greg is a golfist. He can fit his golf clubs in the back, no problem. There's no longer a big strut brace sort of separating half the boot space out. But you can chuck your coat behind you. It's actually surprisingly practical for this sort of car. The steering wheel adjusts up and down, and when it does so, the dials go with it. So it means that you can always see all of the dials. They're not obscured by the top of the steering wheel, which is cool. But then they forgot to make it telescopically adjustable so it doesn't come out. And that's a feature I quite like on a car, because I like to sort of drive with my seat really far back and then have this out. Oh, oh man, yes. Yes, yes, yes. The performance is fantastic because it's there the whole way, all the way through the rev range up to the top end. As you can feel it getting into its stride as it gets higher through the rev range, and it's linear, none of that turbo nonsense that's in every fast car these days, just a nice smooth power delivery that just increases as you get towards the red line. The noise of the V6, as many people say, is not actually as good as, you know, let's say some of the other famous V6s like Alfa Romeo or even the Ford Duratec that I had in my old Ford Cougar. It doesn't sound as good as that, but it still sounds good. It's a V6, of course it sounds good. It sounds better than any sort of inline 4-cylinder engine. The 6-speed manual gearbox is a peach, you know, it's got a really nice short throw on it. It's what you want from a car like this. On this car and many of the 370Zs, they had the rev matching system on the downshift, which means instead of having to heel and toe, when you go down a gear, if I'm in third now and then I want to pop it down into second, you can hear that? It matches the revs to the speed of the wheels and gearbox essentially, so that you're not slamming it into second. It's good for the car, you're not going to wreck the clutch on the downshift, and it just means that the car is ready to go as soon as you downshift into that gear. Apparently it was the first ever rev matching system in a normal car. If you go for the automatic, it's not the end of the world, but you don't get that cool system, but you get magnesium shift paddles behind the steering wheel, which feel apparently really nice. It's a 7-speed automatic, so it's a very modern gearbox. This car handles really well. The thing is, with the 370Z, they actually made it slightly lighter than the 350, despite the fact that it's a more modern car with more modern features. They did that by having an aluminium bonnet and boot and door panels, and then an aluminium subframe. It's quite an advanced car, and the suspension is multi-link rear suspension and double wishbone front suspension, which is proper sports car suspension. And it obviously has big wide tyres on it, a short wheelbase which really gives it that great turn-in feel in the corner, and it's just a real pleasure. I mean, it weighs 1,500 kilos, it's not light, but it doesn't matter really, it just feels so good. And like, obviously the brakes are good. They're not Brembo brakes anymore, they're Nissan's in-house brake design, but it's a really good fun car to drive. And if you find the right road for it, it's just a real pleasure. The problem for the higher speed roads like the motorways and stuff is it obviously is noisy in this cabin. It's a sports car, and that is the compromise, isn't it? It's got big wide tyres. It's funny, there's like literally no sound deadening in the arches or something, because you can, whenever you go over any like little stones and stuff, you can hear them pinging off the underside of the car. And I think that kind of goes to show you what the level of sound deadening is on this car. It's basically none. So it isn't a GT, it's not a Grand Tourer, despite the fact that there was a GT model of this car. The good news is that these cars are reliable. They are generally known to be robust engines. You know, they've been around since the 90s, the VQ engine, and it is a well-made thing that, when cared for, serviced regularly, can do the miles. The only thing that the owner, Greg, has had go wrong with this car in 3 years was a common fault with the steering lock. Now, the electronic steering lock basically just breaks, fails to come off when you start the car, and then you can't steer it, but otherwise it has been dependable over those years. Its service intervals are 9,000 miles. Back in the day when this car was new, it was quite a short interval, and it upset a few people because they were like, oh, I've got to service it every 9,000 miles. But to be honest, if you've got one of these now, realistically, you're not doing 9,000 miles a year, I don't think. Therefore, it's fine. But you're probably getting it serviced once a year at every 5,000–6,000 miles, and that would be recommended from me. Of course, when you're looking to buy a car like this, many of them will have been modified. This car is quite modification free actually. It does have a different exhaust on it, but otherwise it's standard. Obviously these cars can be abused and driven really hard and not looked after, so you do need to be careful when you're looking for one like that. It's also of course worth noting that this car is not cheap to run. The high tax band in the UK and probably elsewhere it's even worse. It's £700+ a year to tax this car. It will get an average, if you're driving carefully, of 26 miles per gallon, and you have to really run it on 98 RON fuel. Now, you can use the normal unleaded. It will detect that you're using that and adjust its timing and everything, and it will run on it, but this car is designed to run on premium unleaded, 98 RON, the expensive stuff. Then, of course, things like tyres are not cheap, insurance is not cheap, so although it's a relatively affordable car to buy for what it is, but you are going to have some money to actually run it. So I've just put some fuel in it, and walking back to the car, I was just like, yeah, I felt good. I was like, if this was my car, I'd be proud. There's no way you would buy one of these if you weren't into cars. And I think part of that is that Nissan badge. I can imagine somebody who's not really into cars buying an expensive BMW performance car or Porsche performance car, Audi, you know, like they'd be like, well, I just want it because it's the badge and it's the best one. With Nissan, you don't do that. You buy it because that's the car you want. There's no badge snobbery. You're not going, ooh, look at me in my Nissan. You're going, I've chosen this car because I want this car, and it's like the car for me, and I've always wanted one. And I think you can sort of sleep well at night knowing that. Thank you to Greg for lending me this car. It's a really nice example of a 370Z, as people say, an unmolested one, with relatively low mileage, 70,000 miles. I have reviewed another Z car. It was the Nissan 370Z Z31, which was a really cool icon of an 80s Z car, one of my favourites with the pop-up headlights and everything. So I'm going to leave a link to that up there. And thank you to you for watching. If you've got this far, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.